Hello, YouTube friends. Long time no talk. Uh, I know I've been absent, haven't made much for videos, but hey, I had, something that I kind of wanted to share with the community and talk about, and thought perhaps people find interesting. Just kind of an example of the way the hobby is changed in some respects since I started making videos. And so, kind of laid the groundwork. See by the title, this deals with, quote, a flip. And I'm not somebody that really flips cards or anything, but I, for the most part, just buy something and hold it and keep it in my collection. I have sold some things a few times. Back during COVID, I decided to kind of downsize some of the bulk in my collection, and so I sold off a number of items around that time. And then about a year and a half ago, I was wanting to make a trip up to Minnesota for a card show there and a meetup with my friend in the community, Dustin Abraham, and a couple of other collectors from YouTube community. And so I sold a handful of cards then to kind of give me a budget for that trip. And I'm doing something similar this time around. I was planning on taking a trip here in September, a few weeks away from it actually, and started this process a couple months ago where it's like the budget for the trip was going to be about $600. My middle child is a senior in high school, and just paid for senior pictures, and I've got other expenses going on, and I didn't want to, pull this money out of the family budget, so I felt like it was best if I was going to take this trip, I should finance it, and just, sell off a piece of the collection to cover that expense. So that was what I decided to do, and, when I started that process, I kind of went to my PSA registry to kind of look for candidates of cards that I might consider selling to raise that amount of money. And so I went to the inventory and I just decided, hey, I'm going to sort everything by APR value, which is actual prices realized. And so that tends to indicate that they've got an eBay sale or sometimes an auction sale of that card in your grade and what the prices it sold for. And when I hit sort this, I was really stunned seeing the cards that came up to the top, and I realized, oh my gosh, I've got these cards from this 1974 Laughlin old time Black Stars set, and they're right there at the top. And you'll see if I scroll down, several of those in the images, you can spot them, that hey, these, and backstory on these cards obviously 1974, Laughlin, he was instrumental in the creation of Fleer, I believe, but he made a lot of sets that were kind of like mail order sets that would have been unlicensed at the time, and on various subject matters. And he made a couple of sets on Negro League stars. There was one from 74 and also another one from 78. And so I had bought a large lot of these cards raw in a eBay auctions. I couldn't remember exactly when. I'll show you more, but I know it was prior to 2017, so it was probably sometime in late 2016, maybe. Well, I want to say it was probably in the spring, so it was probably spring of 2016, 2015 potentially. I couldn't. I couldn't find, eBay records don't go back that far as to your auction purchases. But uh, I, remember buying all these cards because there was a set break of them occurring. It was the night I was going to have to pick up one of my sons from a Boy Scout camp, and I was at the meeting spot, sitting in my car, waiting for them to arrive while these auctions were ending, and they was, selling each card one by one. You know how it goes. There's auctions that are ending one right after the other, from the same seller. And, he's breaking up this set, and I'm sitting in my car, and I'm just sniping the Hall of Famers from this set, one after the other. So, I want to say it's a 36 card set. You can look it up. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. About almost half the set are Hall of Famers. Now, I had like one or two of the Hall of Famers from the set already, but I was like, I'm going to get the others. And at the time, this was not an expensive set. And these were raw. I was winning a lot of these cards, maybe $5-6. I remember the Josh Gibson, the Satchel Paige, and I want to say like Frank Grant, maybe a couple others. I had to bid up, and I might have gone as high as like $20 some, maybe a little past 20. I just can't remember exactly. What sticks in my mind is that after the auctions ended, I was sent, an invoice for combined shipping, and the seller just gave me free shipping because he was like really happy because I'd purchased, I want to say 10 or 12 of the cards in his auctions, and it was more than $200. I can't remember if it was like just a little over $200 or if it was closer to $250, maybe getting close to $300. It's a decade ago. I don't really remember. I used to keep a spreadsheet that would have had what I purchased all these cards for, but that got corrupted a long time ago, and that data, I lost it. So I don't remember exactly what I paid for these cards, but like average price was 10-ish, $10 to $15, maybe. Some of them more. So I have all of these cards, and flash forward to 2017. This is like my very first PSA submission. And so you see there, early March of 2017. That's how I know these were probably bought in 16, maybe even 15. And it includes some of the cards from that set that I submitted. Now this is back in the old days of PSA where you could buy I can't remember what they called it, the premier membership or whatever. It was like $375, something like that, $350. I don't remember exactly, but you got 15 free submissions at the 15-day service. So this was, the faster turnaround time. And so that was like, hey, that seems like, a great deal for, to submit some cards, and I want to submit more later on. So I ponied up and paid that amount for the shipping. This was my first submission. Now the page, it isn't in that submission. There's like 6 cards from it, but I didn't send them all. I had some other cards that I was wanting to submit as part of that, and it was mostly like cards where I didn't have a Hall of Famer card graded. And these are all post post-career cards. They weren't all that expensive, so it was and that's what we did at PSA back at the time. You didn't every card you submitted didn't have to be worth hundreds of dollars. We submitted lots of things that weren't really expensive just because we wanted to play with that registry and and do things. And I had a Hall of Fame player registry where I was trying to get a graded card of every person in the Hall of Fame, and I was doing it with a lot of cards that were made after the player had retired. And these I wasn't spending a lot on the hobby at the time. These were big purchases where I bought this lot of the Black Stars set, and making the PSA membership. That was a big purchase in my hobby at that time period. So that was more than I would normally spend on anything. So to get a perspective here, it's we're dealing with low hundreds, if anything, was massive purchases for me relatively. Most of the stuff I bought was just a few dollars here and there, $10, maybe $50 once in a while. If I spent $100, it was a big deal. That wasn't something that I did lightly. Anyway, so it's a whole lot of backstory, but now so I have these cards, and I didn't think that they were especially valuable. I'd priced these out back in 2020, and I didn't have see that they were worth really much more than what I had invested in them. Which, on the satchel page, maybe I had $50 on the satchel page, and as you can see, when I submitted these did really well. I got a number of 8s and 7s on almost everything I submitted from that purchase. I also got one that was a 9 as well, but it's a lesser stature player from there. And so anyway, but like I said, I see in that list there, trying to go back, yeah, so in this list here, I'm seeing these are a huge value, 3,640, and I'm like, these can't be right. And so I'm gonna go check out these auction prices, and it's like, wow, there it is. And it's like, well, it's Probstein. What is that legitimate? There's always some funny stuff with Probstein, right? That's been going on for a long time. That's one thing that hasn't changed in this hobby, is it? Yeah, Probstein. Anyway, but it's like, I'm going to dig into this a little bit more, and here's like the pop report. So just you're like, hey, 26. There's 2 9s. It says there's 26 8s. That's not really correct, because if you go into the breakdown further, I think it's I don't have that screen up, but all right. Sorry, side squirrel here. Humor me with this. Sorry, satchel page. Okay. So if you're here, this is the grade rundowns, and okay. So 26. There's the 2 9s, but what you see here is the 26. Of those 8s, 4 of them are the plus. That means they're actually an 8.5. So there's actually 6 cards that would be a higher grade than my 8. And of these 26,
There's 3 that are 8 with a qualifier. Well, they're not really 8s either. And oh, I guess I had never noticed it. The 2 9s are both with qualifiers. So I guess, they're not necessarily better than straight 8 either. So I guess, man, that I guess I'm just coming to the realization, yeah, those were the highest graded. Well, other than the 4.8, the 4.8 and a halves. But so anyway, sorry, sidetracked all of this. So that would indicate that there are 19 cards that have an 8 grade. Now, we all know that there's reslabs and resubmit things. People try and crack things out. So maybe that 19 is not even accurate anyway, but that's the best information I have out there for what the population is on this card. And so there isn't going to be a ton of sales on these in any grades, let alone in the highest grades. Now, okay, I wanted to take a look at just those PSA 8s, the all-time sales. And here, so like back in 2020, you can see these weren't selling for anything. December 2020, that would have been before I started selling some stuff right around that time, because I think I was selling around November. Maybe it was happening right during when I was running my little fire sale that I had on some cards. And this isn't a card I even considered selling at the time, but I was pricing everything out just on general principles. Just it's like, I was doing an inventory. We were all bored. I was doing an inventory and I was getting, what are good estimated values based on past sales of everything in the collection. And so I remember I was roasting. So yeah, $50 on this. That looks about fair. 50, 60. There's one for 80, 85. These were. So I was like, well, by the time I bought the card, had it graded, I had somewhere in that neighborhood in the card, and it's like, okay, it's worth about what I paid for it, no big deal. And I haven't really thought of it like I said, a year and a half ago, that was, so this sale would have been like the most recent sale when I would have been looking then. That was, $350. But then these two here within the last, just over 1 year, you have $1,000 and $1,400. And I'm like, well, but when I was looking at these both, I think were both, one was Probstein and one might have been Four Sharp Corners. I was a little bit suspect on all of those, and so I started going, trying to look at the other grades, and I'm seeing, well, you're getting high sales of this in other grades as well that definitely show the rising value. And I started looking at the other cards from the set. So I was looking at the Josh Gibson and the Cool Papa Bell, some of those others, just invalidating that, yeah, they're all these sales can't be fake. There's definitely been a big increase in value in these cards within the last 2 years, where people have decided that they're desirable and they want to purchase these. And so I was like, am I willing to part with one of these? And the one I keyed on was the Satchel Paige, because I also own this card of Satchel Paige, and this is from the end of his playing days. This is one of just a couple of actual cards that were made from him during his time in the majors. So it's like, to me, this is a more significant card of him, even though, it's not nearly as highly graded, and I certainly paid a lot more for this one than I did although I got a steal on this one too, but that's neither here nor there. But this one having so much value, I was like, well, I'd be willing to part with this one because it is, it's not from his playing days. And I was like, well, I could cash that one out. And I'm still kind of kicking the tires on maybe I would cash out that Josh Gibson, because that's a significant amount of money out there for a potential sale. And so I contacted an auction house that I've done a lot of business with in the past, Sterling Sports Auctions LLC. I actually met the proprietor of this auction house up in Minnesota when I was up there back on my trip, and had a nice conversation with him. I look in my history. I'll show it to you coming up. You can see that I've been buying with him since 2014. And now this here card, we see the sale. It just ended a couple nights ago at $1,084.50. There's 15 bids on it. Now that price is the price including the auction house's buyer premium. Gonna assume you're familiar with that. I've already been talking way too long, so not gonna get into breaking all of that down. But just know that includes their cut of the sale. The highest bid that a buyer bid on the card was $900. I'm going to get all of that, and then the auction house gets their buyer's premium, so what's on top of it, which is almost $200. So he's making a nice little cut for having sold this for me. I decided I'd rather go this route than deal with eBay. From a fees percentage, it's about the same, but I kind of felt like this would give it more exposure to people that were specifically looking for high-end graded cards. This was just how the route I felt comfortable trying to do it. I know when I contacted him, I said, hey, there's like a couple sales of this card in this grade of over $1,000, so I'm considering kind of cashing it out, and take, if you're willing to sell it and consign it in your next auction for me, because works out that I could get the money before my trip. He told me, it's like, man, I don't know if it'll match those two eBay sales, but there was another auction that happened. I want to say it was 6-7 months ago through a different auction house, and that one had sold for about $700 or so. He's like, as a conservative estimate, it's like keep your expectations more around there, not the 1,000. And hey, we actually did just over. And if you look at the auction prices, realize what was it? We had two sales on it. Oh heck. Oh, because I switched it. Yeah, that ate. Like I said, we did have. So we exceeded this price. We fell short on this one, but I don't feel bad. I feel like I got a pretty reasonable comp. I didn't. we didn't match the highest price ever sold, perhaps, but that's still pretty significant. And when you consider, I don't think I had $50 or so total investment in this card. Uh, you, you know, I get when you consider the cost of the grading submission, you know, whatever I was paying to grade these cards, uh, man, yeah. So you got to take that, the cost of my membership and divide it by 15. It's it's like maybe you can come up with I had $100 into this card, and to sell for $900 is a pretty dramatic rate of return. Now, obviously, we're talking about 9-10 years, but I really could have bought this card, maybe 2 years ago and still been making a pretty significant profit on it. So definitely some rising prices here on these sets. And that's one of the things sometimes with vintage card sets is things come in and out of fashion. And so there are times when you'll see a dramatic increase where just the hive mind gets to working and it's like, oh, these are actually cool. I should buy these. And other sellers get influenced, or buyers get influenced by what other buyers see other people doing. And it's like, oh, they bought that. I haven't seen that before. Wow, that is cool. I'm going to buy one. And so you see prices just start jumping up on these. So, hey, a nice little windfall for me. It's going to pay for my canoe trip. Happy about that. Like you said, I'm still kicking the tires. Would I be willing to sell that Josh Gibson or maybe some of the others? It's really hard to say if I want to go through that. I'm actually watching, because Love of the Game, which was an auction house I've also spent a lot with over the years and bought from, and one I highly recommend. They have a couple of these cards on their current auction that's ending tonight. And so they've got, like you see there, it's a 7, and current bid on it's like $400. I assume it'll probably go a little bit higher than that before, when the final sale happens. And there's also a Josh Gibson in a 7. And you see the price there of $1,600. Makes the possibility of an 8 selling for, $3,000 or so really seems certainly possible. So I don't know. That's a lot of money out there to just not take the opportunity to cash out. I the it's as much as I made on selling the Satchel Paige, the ROI would be even more dramatic on selling the Gibson, because I have relatively the same amount in it, $50 to $100 absolute most, all in cost on getting on it. So anyway, if you stuck with me during, oh my gosh, all this time, thanks a lot. We'll talk later, and I won't talk so long. Bye.